So I saw Evil Dead Bone at the theaters. Now I was really excited for this movie. When it comes to the Evil Dead franchise, I love the original trilogy. I love Evil Dead Rise. I enjoyed the 2013 Evil Dead movie. It like for me personally was the weakest. And when it comes to this movie, I'll put up there with the 2013 film. I liked this Evil Dead movie. I thought it was good Evil Dead Bone. I didn't think it was great though, and this movie has some problems in my opinion. Again, I did find this to be an entertaining, fun movie. Let me start with the positives with this movie. This movie is really brutal and nasty. It definitely goes there. So it does in a way that's entertaining to me. Like to me, this wasn't like the mommy movie that came out where I felt like it was just being nasty and shocking when it comes to how brutal it was being just for the sake of it. I didn't feel like this movie was doing that. It's brutal in a way that I found entertaining and fun. And the Deadites, when people get Tony's Deadites, you get some like fun moments with when they're these evil Deadite things. So I think how this movie is brutal and nasty. I found that part of the movie, when it comes to how far it goes, to be fun. It's done in a fun and entertaining way. So that's one thing is that I found this to be a fun, entertaining movie. Another positive with this movie is that I think there's a lot of really cool camera movement in this movie. How the camera's moving around when it comes to doing some of the scenes in the movie, like don't some of the action scenes when the dice are like really being brutal and beating this family up. I really love how the camera just kind of like moves in a way. So there's some like cool camera shots in this movie. And then another positive with this movie is that I like how this movie has some Evil Dead lore in there. I thought that was cool. They added some like Evil Dead lore. I thought was interesting. I also like the fact that there's a reason why the Deadites are going after this particular family. So I like that aspect of the story. When it comes to the negatives with this movie, though, I do think this movie is choppy when it comes to the ending at times. In the first half, I thought like the setup I thought was sloppy. To me, it has a sloppy setup, and you can see some of the editing there where it feels choppy. And there's just some points in the movie where you're seeing flashes of the main girl and her husband at the wedding, and it just feels like the way it's cut in is choppy to me. It's just like those times where the editing just felt a little like a little too much cutting and choppy at times in the film for me. So that was another negative I had with this film. And then another problem I have with this movie is that I just never really care for these characters, and I feel like the way this family's written in this movie is not you're not supposed to like these characters, and I can understand that. At the same time, I just never gave a crap about any of these characters in this movie, and I didn't hate them. I just didn't think they were all that memorable either. Like I felt no emotional attachment to this family, to any of these characters. Even the main girl in the movie, I didn't really find myself invested in a character all that much. One of the things I love about the original Evil Dead trilogy and Evil Dead Rise is that you had the ass character in the original Evil Dead trilogy, and I really felt invested in this character. He was a compelling, interesting character. He had personality. You cared about what happened to him. And one of the things I love about Evil Dead Rise, I thought that did a great job, giving really making you care for that family. Like you didn't want that family to die in Evil Dead Rise. Like you actually felt bad when they were getting killed off. I cared for those characters. With this movie, I never got invested in these characters at all in this film. And that's kind of one of the problems I have with the 2013 film also is I never got invested in those characters either. And so the characters in this movie, just even the main girl, like to me, I don't have a problem if your supporting characters is weak. At least make the main character interesting though. At least get me to care about the main character. Like if you can get me just at least care about the main character, the one that survives the whole movie, that's all I care about at the end of the day. Even with the main character though, I just never found myself invested into her. And to be honest, I don't think a character had that much personality to her. And like another negative thing with this movie for me is that, and this kind of goes into me not feeling invested in the characters or the main character, is the fact that they have this sprinkled throughout the movie with the main character where they show at the beginning her husband's an asshole. They're screaming at each other. He gets killed off at the opening of the movie, and they sprinkled throughout, and you find out that he hit her one time, if I remember in the movie, and it shows that he was abusive towards her. Like she shows in her body, she has she has a scar there that he was, hitting her, he was abusive. They sprinkle it throughout the movie, and they have this big emotional moment at the end of the movie with her husband who comes back as a diet, who he's like, his skin is blown up because he died in the opening of the movie in a car where a car exploded and he was on fire. That whole storyline of like sprinkling throughout that she was abused by her husband, I feel like that felt very underwritten to me in this film. It felt undeveloped. Like, if to me, the movie could have gone much more into that harder. And it just felt very underwritten in this film. And when it goes for that emotional moment and then when she kills her husband who's back as a deadite, I just felt flat to me. I didn't feel like they developed it or went as hard into it as they to make me feel like to make me feel that emotional in that moment for a character. So I just like I found that whole storyline to be just very underwritten in the movie. I don't care that this didn't have a whole lot of personality to me. She wasn't really a very interesting character to me. So I just that's another problem with the movie is that I can tell on purpose, like a lot of the characters are written to be in a way where you're supposed to hate these characters. I just never really cared about any of them. And I didn't hate these characters either. They were just like not memorable to me. Like none of these characters stood out to me in this movie. They just felt disposable to me, and they just felt like they were there to be killed by the Deadites. Honestly, the most interesting character were the Deadites in the movie because I feel like they had personality and had some fun with the Deadites with the dialogue. When it comes to the actual characters, though, I was just like, yeah, I they weren't terrible. I just don't feel any attachment towards them either, though. So that was another problem with the movie. And I do think the way that Deadites work in this movie, I'm kind of missed on. I will say this is kind of a missed part of the movie for me. Because there's at times like where the how did like one of the characters in the movie, she kisses her husband in one scene who's a Deadite, and you see he's like all bloody and everything. She gets a blood on her mouth, and you see like this sparkle in her eyes where she's become a diet, but she hasn't like fully toned. And it's one of those things where I was like, that's interesting, but at the same time, like I feel like this movie kind of I noticed it hasn't been like any like wars in the Evil Dead movies about like when people turn into deadites, how long it takes to change, and like there's no like phone rules and how the deadites work in the movies. I felt like in this one though, there was times where I was like, that's interesting, but also at the same time, it kind of felt like they were breaking the rules a little bit how the deadites work in this movie. And then even like the end credits scene. Okay, so I'm gonna get into spoilers here. If you haven't seen the movie, stop the video now. Don't continue to watch the video. I'm gonna spoil the end credit scene. This movie has two scenes at the end. The mid credit scene is a funny moment with the grandmom, who I'll say this with the grandmom. I thought there was some funny moments for character in the movie. At the same time, I did at times feel like she kind of became a character of herself. Like she was just there to like have jokes. And like I didn't feel like they overdid with the humor. It just kind of felt like she became a character of herself because she really was only there to add jokes. So sometimes I found her funny, other times where jokes didn't really land for me. The end credit scene though, they bring back probably my favorite Deadite in the franchise, and this is where you get a big Evil Dead Wise connection here. And even though I think it's cool they brought back this character, and I'm gonna spoil it now, is that the actress who played the mom of the family in Evil Dead Rise, she comes back as a Deadite. Like she kills this little girl. You see that character's asses and some asses of other people, and she comes back, snaps the little girl's neck. And look, I loved Owen Eva Dead Wise, that actress, and I thought she was, my opinion, actually, she's personally my favorite Deadite in the franchise. It's cool to see her character back. At the same time, though, it doesn't really make any sense because even though yes, I'm excited to see that actress back, and I like the fact we got a big Evil Dead Wise connection there in the end credit scene. At the same time, like this doesn't really make any sense because we've never seen a Deadite come back after they've been like killed. So like I especially like coming back from our asses. I don't like to me. even though I think it's like, yeah, I'm excited to see that character back. At the same time, I'm like, that really doesn't make any sense at all story wise. So I have mixed feelings on the end credit scene. Like one part of me is like, oh yeah, I'm excited to see your character back because I love the character as a Deadite. At the same time, it makes no sense. And like I said, it kind of goes back to how the Deadite spoke in this movie, where at times I felt like they just didn't always make sense with the wars of the Deadites in this movie from past Evil Dead movies. So that would be kind of like one thing I'm missed on. And like I said, it's just a movie where the chopping for the editing at times felt choppy. It's sloppy. I think the setup is sloppy. I don't feel any attachment to these characters, and I think that's, and I will say this: this is not a long movie. I do think with the fact that it, since I didn't feel any attachment to the characters, with how brutal and nasty this movie is, it does kind of like, it did feel like at times like I did feel at times getting a little bit like tired of how nasty and brutal this movie was, because of the fact that it's like, yeah, it was a fun entertaining movie. At the same time though, since I didn't really care for any of the characters, it it did at times feel just like, this movie, I think you could have trimmed like probably like 10 15 minutes out of this movie personally, since the characters weren't exactly all that interesting. So overall, I thought this was a fun Evil Dead movie. I don't think this is a great Evil Dead movie. I still think this is one of the most consistent horror franchises because of the fact I still was entertained coming out of this movie. And like I said, I'll put up there with the 2013 Evil Dead movie. The other two Evil Dead movies that I thought were fun. At the same time, they're not great. Like for me, the original trilogy and Evil Dead Rise are fantastic. And this movie isn't as good as any of those movies. So overall, I had a fun time with Evil Dead Bone. Not a movie that I think is fantastic. Not a great Evil Dead movie. Still had a fun time though. So that's my thoughts on Evil Dead Bone. Until next time, movie fans.